Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Broadcast Space. Today, we will look into Kim Jong-un's disappearance for the past 19 days. We very much value your opinion, so please let us know in the comments. Seoul, South Korea. 19 days have elapsed since North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, was seen on his country's state media on April 12, a day after he presided over a meeting of the Politburo of the ruling Workers' Party. Intense speculation about Mr. Kim's disappearance has followed. Some experts have tried to decipher his location by examining satellite images of traffic around key buildings in Pyongyang, the capital. Others have speculated openly about potential candidates for succession. The questions repeatedly being asked are, why did he not join the April 15th birthday ceremony at the mausoleum for Kim Il-sung, his grandfather and the founding father of the country? Has he undergone a cardiovascular procedure at Hyeongsan Hospital, a clinic dedicated to treating the Kim family, as a Seoul-based website has claimed? Kim Yoon-chol, South Korea's unification minister, who refuted the reports of Mr. Kim being ill, suggested that his absence from the April 15th ceremony could be related to the government scaling back on such commemorations as it intensifies the battle against the coronavirus pandemic. There might be more to it. Mr. Kim seems to be ensuring that he is moving out of his famous grandfather's shadow. The Supreme People's Assembly, the North Korean parliament, revised the constitution in April and August of last year, and Mr. Kim was described as the one who represents the state, a phrase competing with Kim Il-sung's title, the head of the state, while he was president. The revisions also granted Mr. Kim the right to appoint and recall diplomatic representatives, a power that not even his grandfather possessed. The North Korean state media's propaganda has been magnifying Mr. Kim's image while de-emphasizing the accomplishments of his grandfather after the collapse of the summit between Mr. Kim and President Trump in Hanoi, Vietnam, in February of last year. The glorification of Mr. Kim above his forefathers was obvious during the party's founding anniversary in October. This year, for the first time since Mr. Kim came to power in 2012, Pyongyang did not hold a large-scale national meeting attended by officials, foreign visitors and citizens marking Kim Il-sung's birthday. Another key feature of Kim Il-sung's birth anniversary celebrations has been the publication of an editorial in Rodong Sinmun, the party paper, dedicated to glorifying his achievements. This April, the birthday editorial was published 3 days late, a remarkable decision that likely was made at the higher levels of the Workers' Party. Neither questions about Mr. Kim's health nor concerns about quarantine explain the belated publication of the newspaper's birthday editorial. Pyongyang has adhered to a long-standing tradition of maintaining silence on speculation about its top leader and his family, including their health. Questions about whether Mr. Kim has been unwell and has had surgery will not be answered. Information about his health is seen as most sensitive as it can have repercussions for regime stability. Pyongyang seems to consider addressing speculation about its leadership through its state media as inappropriate and unnecessary. In 2014, Mr. Kim remained absent from public view for 41 days. His father, Kim Jong-il, remained absent from the public eye for 51 days in 2008. In both cases, North Korea did not respond officially or through its state media to rumors about their health. Mr. Kim will undoubtedly return to the public view when he can, most likely at a time of his choice, and won't be seen to be responding to international rumors. North Korea's supreme leader may be deliberately prolonging his absence to mislead and confuse audiences. Since late last year, the country has drastically reduced foreign policy messaging and stopped publishing the party daily commentaries on foreign affairs as well. These moves could be aimed at making its foreign policy calculus harder to decipher. Yet Mr. Kim's 19-day absence from the public view is not highly unusual considering the increased intervals between his public appearances of late. Between 2012 and 2020, most of his appearances in public have been after gaps of less than 15 days. But this year alone, Mr. Kim disappeared for 21 days between January 26 and February 16, and for 19 days between March 22 and April 10. We should attempt to track Mr. Kim's movements with more caution and reason, and perhaps less speculation, using context and past examples of longer gaps between his appearances to guide us. North Koreans are ordered to hand over decadent and bourgeois pet dogs for restaurant meat as the country is rocked by food shortages. Kim Jong-un has declared that pet dogs are a symbol of capitalist decadence and ordered that dogs in Pyongyang be rounded up, and owners are fearful that their beloved pets are being used to solve the nation's food shortages. Dictator Kim announced in July that owning a pet is now against the law, denouncing having a dog at home as a tainted trend of bourgeois ideology. Authorities have identified households with pet dogs and are forcing them to give them up or forcefully confiscating them and putting them down, a source told South Korea's Chosun Ilbo newspaper. Recent UN reports stated that as many as 60% of North Korea's 25.5 million people are facing widespread food shortages that have been worsened by international sanctions imposed on the regime for its nuclear missile programs. Dog meat has long been considered a delicacy on the Korean peninsula, although the tradition of eating dogs is gradually fading out in South Korea. Still, an estimated 1 million dogs are reared on farms to be consumed every year in the South. Man's best friend is still a staple on the menu in the North, however, with a number of dedicated dog restaurants in Pyongyang. Dog meat is most popular in the hot and humid summer months as it is believed to provide energy and stamina. +4 often served in a spicy soup or stew with vegetables, it is also known for raising the body temperature in the cold winter months. The Chosun Ilbo reported that pet owners are cursing Kim Jong-un behind his back, but there is little they can do as to refuse to comply with the authorities could be interpreted as an act of defiance of a leader who likes to be referred to as the supreme dignity. The outlawing of pets will also have come as a surprise to many middle-class Pyongyang residents, who began to keep dogs after the regime attempted to spruce up its image in the run-up to the 1989 World Festival of Youth and Students. Embraced as a symbol of economic development and sophistication, wealthy families would be seen walking their pets, which even made appearances on state-run television soap operas. As recently as October 2018, Kim himself presented a pair of Pungsan indigenous hunting dogs to Moon Jae-in, the South Korean president, as a symbol of the growing détente between the two nations. The peace puppies had a fortunate escape as their move to the south coincided with a demand that ordinary North Koreans pay a tax of dog fur, to be turned into coats, to mark the foundation of the Workers' Party. +4 The country is facing widespread food shortages, aggravated by the decision to close the border with China due to coronavirus. Beijing is traditionally Pyongyang's main supporter and the source of much of the food required to feed Kim's people. North Korea was also hit hard by a number of natural disasters last year, which impacted the harvest, while it has been badly affected by flooding again this month, with crops in the key agriculture regions wiped out. Kim has nevertheless declared that he and his people will brave the situation, with the young leader telling a meeting of his Politburo on Thursday that while the nation has suffered serious losses in the flooding, it should not accept any outside assistance because of the possibility of the coronavirus spreading. Nearly 100,000 acres of arable land have been inundated, with nearly 17,000 homes and more than 600 public buildings destroyed. With pork and beef an almost unheard of luxury for most ordinary people, the culling of the dogs of Pyongyang may be designed to stave off hunger in the coming months. This comes as severe flooding caused by monsoon rains have prompted the leader to feed victims with his own private grain reserves. Nearly 1,500 acres of rice fields were flooded, as well as 179 housing blocks and 730 single-story homes destroyed. Kim's decision to use his reserves have gained attention from some diplomats, describing it as an SOS signal to China for emergency aid. Recent UN reports stated that as many as 60% of North Korea's 25.5 million people are facing widespread food shortages that have been worsened by international sanctions imposed on the regime for its nuclear missile programs. Dog meat has long been considered a delicacy on the Korean peninsula, although the tradition of eating dogs is gradually fading out in South Korea. Still, an estimated 1 million dogs are reared on farms to be consumed every year in the South. Man's best friend is still a staple on the menu in the North, however, with a number of dedicated dog restaurants in Pyongyang. Dog meat is most popular in the hot and humid summer months as it is believed to provide energy and stamina. North Korea's leader had big economic plans. He admits they've failed. Kim Jong-un's blunt assessment led his country to plan a rare Workers' Party Congress for January to chart a new course after the country was hammered by sanctions, floods and the pandemic. Seoul, South Korea. Back in 2016, North Korea's freshly minted leader, Kim Jong-un, held the country's first ruling Workers' Party's Congress in 3 decades and laid out an ambitious 5-year economic plan to build what he called a great socialist country by 2020. On Thursday, he admitted that the plan had failed. One calamity after another has hit North Korea since 2016. Led by the United States, the United Nations Security Council imposed devastating economic sanctions to retaliate against the North for its pursuit of nuclear weapons and long-range ballistic missiles. Then came the global coronavirus pandemic, followed by massive flood damage because of torrential rain. Mr. Kim now plans to chart a new course. North Korea on Thursday announced plans to hold a rare Workers' Party Congress in January to work on a new plan to shore up its economy. Mr. Kim's blunt admission of policy shortcomings during a formal party meeting was an indication of how much the North Korean economy had been hammered by the triple crises. Plans to improve the national economy have been seriously delayed by severe internal and external situations and unexpected manifold challenges, the Central Committee of the Workers' Party concluded during the meeting in Pyongyang, the capital. The North's official Korean Central News Agency reported on Thursday. People's living standard has also not been improved remarkably, the committee said. It remains rare in North Korea, if not unprecedented, under Mr. Kim's rule to openly admit to such failures. Mr. Kim's father, Kim Jong-il, and grandfather Kim Il-sung, who had ruled before him like infallible, godlike figures, never did. In North Korea, it had been a capital crime to criticize the policies of the dynastic Kim regime that has led North Korea since its founding in the 1940s. But since he came to power, the younger Mr. Kim has broken that tradition, casting himself as a new type of leader, one who is ostensibly more forthcoming in admitting and addressing economic problems of his country. He has often criticized his state-run factories and construction projects for being unproductive as he tried to rebuild his country's economy in defiance of international sanctions. When he met with President Moon Jae-in of South Korea in 2018, Mr. Kim admitted his roads and railways were in embarrassing condition, South Korean officials said. In October, North Korea's state news media reported that he voiced sharp criticism of the dependent policies of his predecessors when he ordered the demolition of South Korean hotels and other buildings in a resort complex that the two countries once operated together. Mr. Kim held his major coming-out event as leader when he held the party congress in 2016, the first such meeting in 36 years. There, he adopted his ambitious 5-year economic goals. The plan was for Mr. Kim to celebrate his achievement during the party's 75th anniversary on October 10 this year with pomp and spectacle. But things have hardly transpired as Mr. Kim had hoped. North Korea had already been struggling under the stranglehold of United Nations sanctions. Then, last week, the North Korean leader admitted that his nation was facing two crises at the same time, fighting the spread of the coronavirus and coping with extensive flood damage. But he ordered his country not to accept any international aid for fear that outside help might bring in COVID-19. In his no-nonsense assessment during the party meeting on Wednesday, Mr. Kim said his country faced unexpected and inevitable challenges this year. He also critiqued the achievements and shortcomings of his own government, state news media reported. When Mr. Kim took power after the death in 2011 of his father and predecessor, he vowed to ensure that his people, long suffering from multiple maladies, would never have to tighten their belt again. In 2016, when he adopted his economic plan, the North's economy grew 3.9%, the highest since a devastating famine hit the country in the late 1990s, according to the estimates by the South Central Bank of Korea. The growth was largely the result of ramped-up exports of coal, iron ore, textiles and fisheries to China. But the United Nations Security Council banned such exports after the North rapidly expanded its weapons programs, testing 3 intercontinental ballistic missiles in 2017, as well as what it said was a hydrogen bomb. As the sanctions tightened, the North's economy shrank by 3.5% in 2017, according to the Bank of Korea. It contracted by 4.1% the following year, with its exports to China plummeting 86%. North Korea's economy recovered slightly last year, growing 0.4%, as Pyongyang invented ways of easing the pain of the sanctions, such as smuggling banned cargo across the Chinese border at night or between ships on the high seas. It also exported practically anything not banned by the sanctions: cheap watches assembled with Chinese components, artificial eyelashes, wigs, mannequins and soccer balls. But this year, the coronavirus forced the country to shut down the border with China, which had accounted for more than 90% of the North's external trade. North Korea's exports to China plummeted to $27 million in the first half of this year, a 75% drop from a year ago, according to the Korea Institute for National Unification in Seoul. Imports from China dropped 67% to $380 million. As the North's economic woes deepened, Mr. Kim began delegating some of his governing work to his deputies, including to his only sister, Kim Yo-jong, the South's National Intelligence Service said on Thursday. She has increased her voice in the North's relations with South Korea and the United States. After 9 years in power, Kim Jong-un wants to lessen the stress of governing, Ha Tae-kung, a South Korean lawmaker affiliated with the conservative opposition Future United Party, said while briefing reporters on a closed-door parliamentary hearing from top intelligence officials. Another reason is that he wants to spread the blame and lessen his political risk should policies go wrong. But Mr. Ha said that Mr. Kim's delegation of power did not lessen his absolute authority or mean that Ms. Kim had been chosen as his successor. When Mr. Kim stayed out of sight earlier this year, sparking rumors that he was incapacitated, Ms. Kim was cited by outside analysts as the primary candidate to succeed her brother in the dynastic regime. After he failed to persuade President Trump to lift sanctions during their meeting in Vietnam in February last year, Mr. Kim said his government would slog through the sanctions. In his New Year's message this year, Mr. Kim asked his people to prepare to tighten our belts again. So far, he has shown no sign of backing down on his nuclear weapons program. He vowed to boost his nuclear weapons program further, threatening to end his moratorium on nuclear and long-range missile tests. In another aggressive move, North Korea in June blew up an inter-Korean liaison office, the symbol of warm ties between Mr. Kim and President Moon, after blaming the South for failing to increase inter-Korean economic exchanges. Mr. Moon's new national security advisor, Soo-hoon, planned to meet Yang Jiechi, a member of Beijing's Communist Party Politburo, when the Chinese official visits the southern South Korean city of Busan on Friday and Saturday. The two officials were expected to discuss North Korea and a potential trip to Seoul by China's top leader, Xi Jinping, Mr. Moon's office said. Why did Kim Jong-un's sister become the face of North Korea? Kim Yo-jong, the only sister of North Korea's supreme leader, Kim Jong-un, is now setting the tone of the country's foreign policy. And if he is young and belligerent, she is younger and more belligerent still. Early this month, after human rights activists in South Korea used balloons to send anti-North propaganda leaflets across the border, Kim Yo-jong called them human scum and mongrel dogs. She faulted President Moon Jae-in of South Korea for failing to stop him and upbraided him for putting his neck into the noose of pro-United States flunkism. She warned of action in reprisal, apparently threatening to destroy the Inter-Korean Liaison Office set up in 2018 to facilitate communication between the North and the South. And destroyed it was. She also threatened to move troops into border regions that have been demilitarized. But they weren't. On Wednesday, Kim Jong-un halted those plans, at least for the moment. Some analysts have described the duet as a version of the classic good cop, Jong-un, bad cop, Yo-jong drill. But it really is more like a bad cop, worse cop routine. Why this? Why her? Why now? Over the past 2 years, Kim Yo-jong's stature at home and abroad has increased dramatically. She was at her brother's side during summit meetings with Mr. Moon, President Xi Jinping of China and President Trump. Less visible but no less significant, in late 2019, Kim Yo-jong reportedly was appointed as head of the Department of Organization and Guidance, the formal locus of political power in North Korea, where all key personnel decisions related to the party, the military and the bureaucracy are made. Yet it was only this March that she first issued a formal statement under her own name. It ridiculed Mr. Moon, calling him mentally challenged and a frightened dog. Then it was she who publicly acknowledged that Mr. Trump had sent a letter to her brother offering help in dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. She now also runs the United Front Department, which is in charge of South Korea policy. Informally, she has played the roles of spokeswoman to her brother, chief of staff and national security advisor. Shortly after the curious episode earlier this spring during which Kim Jong-un largely disappeared from view, prompting rumors that he might be incapacitated, perhaps even dead, and then reappeared, she became the face of the regime. Accelerating efforts to bolster the leadership credentials of Kim Yo-jong is a sensible strategy from Pyongyang's point of view. A pandemic, unlike a famine, which North Korea has experienced, or a military attack, which it fears, can kill princes as readily as paupers. The children of Kim Jong-un, who is said to be 36, are too young to succeed him anytime soon. Again on Thursday, the Japanese government said it had suspicions about his health. Kim Yo-jong, reportedly in her early 30s, has much to prove, and she might well do some of that proving, at least in the short or medium term, by ratcheting up two staple features of the Kim regime's strategy of self-preservation, calculated external threats and extreme internal repression. In 2012, his very first year in power, Kim Jong-un, then not yet 30, oversaw 2 long-range missile tests. There is no reason to think that Kim Yo-jong would be any less aggressive or tyrannical than her brother, or their father and grandfather, and she may even be more so. The nature of the regime she represents, and will perhaps one day inherit, almost demands it. That a woman would now be the surrogate supreme leader of North Korea, a male-dominated culture, politically and otherwise, is a first, but it isn't heresy. Ensuring that the Kim family's authority remains unchallenged supersedes any social conventions. The ideological foundation of the regime rests on the supposedly near-superhuman, revolutionary leadership of the country's founding leader and his direct progeny. Kim Jong-un's older brother, Kim Jong-chol, has no political acumen or interests, their father, Kim Jong-il, used to say. Kim Pyong-il, a half-brother of Kim Jong-il's, having long lived in semi-exile in Eastern Europe, is treated more like a distant relative than as a core member of the Kim clan's rarefied Mount Paektu bloodline. At best, he is to be watched and contained. At worst, his life, like the lives of another uncle and a half-brother of Kim Jong-un's, could prove precarious and short. Kim Yo-jong appears to be the sole viable torchbearer today. For decades, North Korea's leaders have cleverly constructed an image of weirdness. They project buffoonish bellicosity, for example, so they can peddle any dialing down later as progress, a breakthrough, a concession. Diversion and psychological manipulation are fixtures of Pyongyang's diplomatic playbook. Now the advent of Kim Yo-jong may offer the regime a chance to exploit, among other things, Mr. Trump's sexism for tactical gain, and this whether she plays hardball or the part of gentle charmer. Thursday marked the anniversary of the beginning of the Korean War in 1950, which was triggered by the North's invasion of the South. Some of us expected Pyongyang to commemorate the day with some military provocation. It didn't, but something like that almost surely is in the offing. Expect a goad, a jab, one outrage or another, certainly some challenge ahead of the election in the United States, anything to throw off Mr. Trump, beleaguered as he is by the pandemic, mass protests and a historic economic crisis. And don't be. What do you think about the whole situation? Let us know in the comments. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, hope you have a fantastic day.